What's up YouTube, Gushy here. In this video we're going to be going over everything you need to know about standoffs. We're going to be taking an in-depth look at how to initiate them, how to get the maximum value using the right skills and armor. We're going to be breaking down the different tiers of enemies by going through each of their frame data and animations. And finally, we're going to be looking at how to win all your standoffs by pointing out the differences between their fake outs and real attacks, and commonalities between different enemy types. Standoffs are a really important tool, especially in the early game, where you could take out several enemies before the fight even starts. However, if you were like me, initiating standoffs sometimes felt a little inconsistent. All the game tells you is that if you get that prompt to initiate the standoff, then you could. However, there are certain requirements needed that the game doesn't tell you to actually get that prompt to show up. So the first thing to note is that there's a minimum and a maximum distance you have to be at. In this clip, if you look at the entrance of the Mongol camp, once this Mongol walks into range, then the prompt shows up. And so that's the maximum distance you have to be at. Next, we'll try to go as close as we can to the Mongol. And once we go around assassination distance, then the prompt will disappear. The second requirement is that the enemy can't be in active combat with you. And the game shows you this by the detection meter above the enemy's head. And there's 3 stages. A white meter means that they see you and they're investigating. Yellow means that they detect you and that they're pursuing you. And then finally red, which means that you're in combat. So as long as you're within that white or yellow meter, that prompt to initiate standoffs still shows up. Once that meter hits red, then the prompt will go away. People have reported that sometimes they don't get the prompt even though they meet those requirements. So to solve that, just double check your settings. If you go to options, accessibilities, then scroll down to simplify controls and toggle button holds, just make sure those are turned off. And those are basically all the requirements to initiate a standoff. A really cool tip is that you can actually target a specific enemy during standoffs. Once you get that prompt and hit that button to initiate a standoff, the game actually chooses the closest enemy to you for you to stand off against. In all my previous examples, I've been fighting against the shield guy. However, if I make my way a little bit more to the right and closer to the enemies over here, then initiate the standoff, you'll be fighting the sword guy instead. And this is extremely useful because as you find out later on in this video that some enemy types make it harder to read their animations. Alright, so next we'll go over how to get the maximum value for standoffs. So by default, you can get at maximum 1 kill from a standoff. However, with the right skills and armor, the maximum amount of kills you can get is actually 5. As a side note, if you get 5 kills within a standoff, that actually unlocks the trophy all in the wrist. So the first thing you'll need is the right techniques. So if you open up your menu and go down to the ghost techniques, in the evolving tactics category, the second option is standoff. So the first one in the tree is just the base standoff, which gives you that ability to do standoffs. The next one is going to be the standoff streak, which improves that kill by 1. And finally, the third option in the tree, the improved standoff streak, will increase that by another 1. So that will get you to a max of 3 kills per standoff. The next thing you'll need is the Sakai clan armor, and this is available to you at the beginning of Act 2, and after upgrading this all the way to the 4th armor set, it'll increase your standoff streak by 2, bringing the total up to 5. So next we'll be going over the frame data for each of the enemy types and their animations. And the first thing I want to get out of the way is answering the question of how does the gameplay difficulty affect standoffs? So to test this, I went to a Mongol camp and fought the same guy on each difficulty. And on easy, for this Mongol captain here wearing the black armor, from the frame he starts his attack to when he hits me takes 19 frames. Okay, then we'll switch it to medium, keeping a continuous shot here. I'll call this guy out again, and this time it takes 19 frames again. And you guys could kind of guess, but on hard again, it takes another 19 frames.
Are you cowards?
And on lethal, same thing, 19 frames. We're also going to look at the lower intensity combat, which got introduced in the newest patch, which is supposed to relax several timing specific elements, but doesn't really go into depth at what that involves. So we'll turn that setting on, and as you can see, it automatically locks the game difficulty down to easy. Again, we'll test it out. And like before, still 19 frames. And so just to reiterate, difficulty does not affect standoff timings. And with that, we'll go into all the frame data for each enemy type. To explain my process throughout this, I recorded and measured all standoff times for every enemy I came across. I then separated them by how long it took, and then tried to find some commonalities between them. I also knew that as you progress through the different areas, enemies became harder to stand off against. And so what I found was that timings didn't depend on the area, but actually depended on their appearance and what color clothes they were wearing. So most of the first area included bandits and red colored Mongols. The second consisted of straw hats and blue colored Mongols. And the third included yellow and green Mongols. And it doesn't matter what type of enemy they are, whether it be the sword, the shield, the brute, the spear, or even the generals that wore the black armor. As long as they're the same color, their frame data is the same. So starting off with the bandits, it takes a total of 21 frames for them to finish their attack. Next are the red Mongols, which take 19 to finish their attack. The blue Mongols, which show up in the second area, take 17 frames to finish their attack. And similarly, the straw hats take the same amount of time at 17 frames. And then this is where things get hard. Yellow Mongols take 15 frames. And finally, the green Mongols take 1 frame slower at 14 frames. And so to summarize all this up, here's a list of each enemy tier and how many frames it takes for them to attack. Now, since you know how the enemies are tiered, we'll go on to look at their animations and what to look for to win as much standoffs as possible. So excluding the bandits and the straw hats who have different attack animations, all Mongols that use the same weapon have almost identical attack animations. The only exception is the shield guy, who starts his attack with his sword on his back, and the flame sword shield guy, which holds the sword to his side because he just doesn't want to burn himself. So we're just going to look at the differences between their fake outs and their actual attacks. So here's the spear guy. Here's the sword guy. This is the brute. And then the shield guy. And so the commonality between all of them is that they always need to move their feet to hit you. So what I found was that the one body part to look at is the back leg. Their back leg always has to move for them to attack. And so there are exceptions to this rule. Sometimes you'll get camera shots that are just absolutely horrible. So like in this one, the grass is just way too high to even see the legs. And even in some instances, they cover part of their head. So the next body part to look at is actually their chest or their shoulders. Don't worry about the vertical movement of their chest, but only the horizontal. So I just picture a vertical line in space, and once they pass that, then it indicates their true attack animation. And so those are the basic rules that I kind of follow to win my standoffs. And this concludes my guide to everything you need to know about standoffs. If you found any of this information useful, please drop a like on this video because it took a lot of work to get all this information to you guys. And if you want more of this content, hit that subscribe button to always stay up to date with everything I post. If you made it to the end of the video, thanks for watching again, and peace.